everyone could please either silence or turn off their cell phones. And please join us in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So Denise, for today's work session, any
We have
deletions?
We have no additions, we have one deletion of the solar kilt request from EDP. That item has been postponed.
Okay. We won't have you read the email describing the reasons for postponement.
Okay.
Okay. So that was a timed item at 9, and our next timed item is at 10. Did you get any acknowledgement back from Dave Nolan?
I can tell you what this is, since he's not here. So what we needed to have in place was an actual application for these pilot programs for solar as they come through. So Dave was kind enough to draft up a application for this process.
Okay.
And that's all it is.
Okay.
So we probably should have a little discussion, at least as I was going over this, and I'd had some prior discussion with Dave, but it does have on here, have you applied for land use approval, which is good. I think the other thing that needs to be on here, does this need a right-of-way permit? Because of so many times associated with solar, either they want road vacations or they're going to be putting in a new right-of-way or a new approach on a right-of-way. So if we, all the boxes that can be checked on this, the better off we are.
Right. Okay.
That should be covered on the land use side, but if we spell it out here, it'd be good.
It's fun. I've got it.
Yeah. No, that's a good catch, Commissioner. I did read yesterday. I talked to Dave last week too. We talked about, I can't remember which item he added, but yeah, that's an excellent.
It should be out on the land use side, but if we just put that box on there,
Yeah.
it's one more.
Anything else you
I
want to
think
discuss on that?
that's the only thing, and I caught that this morning as I was
Yeah.
reviewing.
Good. Okay, next up, Gabion basket quotes for the superintendent, Kevin. Kevin?
So being unsure exactly of the process here, I'll just describe what these three quotes are or discuss the lowest one.
Yeah, what our process is, you have to get 3 quotes by our contract review board rules, and then you bring in and present out of the 3 quotes, which ones you would prefer to go with, and justification for that.
Okay, so the quote that came back the lowest, ACF West, I talked to them this morning. There's a small change in the quantity takeoff that I reviewed they didn't have accounted for, but it changed the dollar amount, $325.98. So I think you had $34,596.66. It should be $34,922.64. The rest of these quotes are quite a bit higher, and I don't see any reason to entertain why they're that high, I guess.
Okay.
So, oh, I'm sorry.
Well, Kevin, I apologize, I never got a chance to talk to you this morning before. Couple of questions on it. It has rental of the pneumatic hog ring gun, and then it has apparently a purchase of one. Is that correct? One's $2,110, another one's rental of.
Yeah, and neither one of them we're gonna use. That's why it keeps the price down. They have pliers available to snap these hog rings onto.
So that would reduce this amount by the $500 and the $2,100.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't be, the thing that makes me nervous about the rental is we're gonna try and do this over the course of this winter.
Yeah.
And rent something and not using it seems not.
Okay. So that rental will go away as the $500. Now, what about the purchase will also go away because you're going to use manual ones? So that will change it by $2,610. And my next question is, because you'll get to know me, I always look at numbers. with our temporary part-time employees, I think we could reduce that freight if we went up and picked them up, if they could be hauled in one time.
Well, that I'm not sure about. I can call and ask that question.
We've done that quite a bit over the years that you wouldn't be aware of.
This says it's coming from Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Oh, I read up here.
But I just talked to that guy this morning.
I looked up here at Portland, I didn't see Arkansas, okay.
Yeah, I can ask, and if, maybe they just put that on there for their own.
Well, it says freight from Fort Smith.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, no way we can make it to Arkansas and save money. I looked at the top of where this company is out, it was Portland, so.
Well, we might have somebody interested in the one-way trip.
The one-way trip. So anyways, it looks like that quote would come down, the $2,610, if you're not getting those, that pneumatic hog gun and,
Oh, yeah, and it would end up being $32,312.64.
excellent.
Because I wouldn't have that rental on there.
So my only question, Kevin, because I looked at it too, and it looked like a lot of stuff to try and compare. But what I was trying to compare were the pieces, quotes, and they're not the same.
Oh, this ACF used, the specs are, I don't want to say vague, but they allow for different size baskets to be used.
Okay.
The other two quotes, they were actual to the decimal, if you will, takeoffs off the prints. This company suggested that we use 4.5 foot wide baskets in some of these applications off of the takeoff on the print, because he told me in their, what do you want to call, history of installing them, they're more stable. So in this case, we're getting a better price and potentially more stability.
Okay. That's all I had. It's on the agenda tomorrow, I believe, for approval.
Yep. Very good.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Collins, updated employee handbook discussion.
I thought we have a lot of people here for this discussion. Our handbook hasn't been updated in a number of years, and so I'm looking for some direction from you. This is something you'll see in the management letter tomorrow from the auditors, that we need to get this updated. So there's been a lot of new employment legislation that affects us, especially this year. So we've got to get those implemented, and we've also made some changes to our policies and added some policies over the years. So we've got to get it all together. I've gone through and I've made the changes I think are necessary. In fact, I actually just started from scratch. I had CIS legal counsel review the draft that I've produced. That doesn't mean it's good to go and we should just approve it. That's just the first step. I'm proposing some fundamental changes in the way we do business, and I think that there's a lot of variables to consider here with each of the changes, and I think there needs to be a lot of discussion, especially with all of the department heads. They need to be involved. I think, well, I'm just thinking about the road department especially. There's some possible unintended consequences that need to be discussed. And so I guess what I'm asking for today is some direction. How do we get this done? How do you want me to proceed? We've kind of talked about some ideas. If you want me to throw out a plan, I'll do that, or if you have a...
Well, what you're describing there, Jay, definitely is a need. We've talked briefly about it off and on in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you putting together the updates you believe, because you deal with it day in and day out, and then we schedule kind of a non-official work session with department heads, just to brainstorm, get that draft out to them and us, and just have a couple hours where we brainstorm everything that's in there and see where we're at, see if there's missing items that people bring forward.
Jay and I have talked about it. It's in draft form now. I agree. I've made it a little bit different in the process, and what he explained is that I would get it in the draft form to all of us, department heads and elected officials, for us to review, make sure it says draft, would be my thought.
Yeah.
And give people a chance to go through it, and then have a staff meeting and a presentation of the changes in it, and have them bring any additions or deletions that they might want to, and have that staff meeting with all elected officials and department heads so they have a time to review it before we get right into the staff meeting. You was thinking more of have a staff meeting and review the changes? Or?
No, I think I said to send it out to everybody to look at. Maybe I didn't, maybe that was just in my mind, but you're exactly right. People need to see the draft first. I didn't know where he was at in the draft.
I was thinking maybe one more step in that process. There's some real fundamental changes that I think I might want to sit down and discuss with each of you first before we send it out.
That's fine.
I want to make sure that you're okay with those before we start discussing those as department heads.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good idea.
So if I could start with each of you, then get it out to them to review. Schedule something a couple weeks from now with all the department heads. And then, depending on how that goes, maybe one final, everybody together to finalize this.
Just a thought, I agree with that. Do you want to put together a smaller management team, you and 2 or 3 others, to review it before it goes out to staff?
We could do that, or I know that there's some specific questions that are going to maybe cause problems for specific departments. The road department is one of them. So I at least need to have discussion with some department heads that I know these policies will affect. I could do that, or we could.
Well, I think maybe it's both. You bring the commissioners one-on-one, we review it, and then the management team that you need to pull together, I think maybe if you pull those departments together at the same time and sit
It really
down and
would
have
help.
that discussion.
It really would help to have somebody or a few people in a management team to help me get that into it.
Yeah, because of the different views, different ideas, different departments, I think that would be.
Yeah, and it kind of fits with employment numbers too. We have departments that have a lot of employees that.
Okay. They have it in mind who you would like that management team to be.
Well,
I think Kevin, the sheriff, and,
our administrative assistant,
Yeah.
I would think,
Yeah.
Denise.
have to think about that for.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to think off the cuff. I'm
Yeah,
trying to
that's
think
how I
of,
didn't really give them
because
that
you get
info.
much bigger than that, you have almost the whole staff meeting.
Was there other departments besides Kevin's that you felt like Dave, since his
Well,
guy's dry?
You know, the union contract is going to trump this, and so
Right.
really, I think most of the sheriff's things will be worked out. The road department will be completely directed by the handbook, so Kevin's certainly one of the biggest players.
It's a small team that I would like to just let you bring that team together,
Yeah, okay.
Jay, because you know which ones will be productive.
Yeah.
And be the ones that move forward to the full staff meeting
Okay,
in support of the direction we're going.
okay.
I myself, I don't know, Commissioner, I think
No,
Jay, you pick the people,
Okay.
if that's the right thing, to have a small management team to review it.
Okay.
So you'd fit, because there's so many things that impacted the people. I understand you got the union contract for the departments that are union. You have internal policies within department that,
Yeah.
you know, there's individual policies by department also that people might say, well, I have this covered in my department under this policy. So,
I think once we have that management meeting too, I mean, that couple hours I think might do it, but if nothing else, it'll be a really good time to a training time to update, some of the policies, you know, legislation has changed a lot in the past several years. And as you go through the handbook, you won't recognize the intent behind the language there unless you know the changes and what the legislation was that caused those changes. And so really all those things have to be discussed or you won't really understand that.
Well, so whenever we get to that full staff meeting, those need to be highlighted best we can, Jay, so
Okay.
we make sure we get that out there to all of our staff, all of our department heads, elected officials.
You know, you can get these meetings and they can kind of mushroom out and lose the focus of the update to the employee handbook.
Mhm.
But it brings us back around to the need to bring in some really quality informational sharing ethics and conduct type. Because, you know, a lot of the handbook's built around that and
Yeah.
have that highlighted to definitely to our department heads and elected officials for their perusal on down to their employees. Because we've chatted about that as well. I wouldn't suggest that we do it in this type of a meeting, but we have to highlight those things at the same time, because it's necessary.
Okay. So let me just put you on notice, page 1 of the handbook, it's gonna be our mission statement. And you talked about it in the past, we haven't really got there yet, but it sounded like, I looked at the minutes and, so that'll be part of this process too, if you get a chance to get that formalized and implemented. Can we do that?
I think Dan had put that together pretty soon.
Do you have some language that you would like to start with at least?
It's in those minutes.
Yeah, and follow it up after.
Yeah, I took those minutes and put something in there to start with, so.
Well, she got a little bit of an updated version, and she said yesterday it was identical to the notes,
Okay.
but what she sent me for an email wasn't quite the same, but it's pretty short and sweet to the point.
I can't remember, it's about, well, anyways, I can't remember exactly what it was you came up with.
We serve the public, something like that.
The only reason that we open up our doors,
Yeah, okay.
the only reason we're here is to serve the public.
Okay. All right.
That's not what it says, but,
Yep. All public servants.
yep.
Anything else?
Well, that's a question for you.
What kind of timeframes are you looking at, Jay?
Well, I'd like to be able to get to that department head meeting in 2 weeks. Does that sound reasonable? I think it is, but I guess I would like the department heads to have a draft of that for 2 weeks. So maybe 3 weeks.
So you're looking out to the second meeting in November, which would be and it doesn't have to be on a meeting day. We can have a staff meeting anytime, it doesn't have to be on a meeting day.
Well, in November, I don't know what Denise is
Yeah, we don't have a
conjured
second.
up. We don't have a second.
Yeah, because AOC,
We only have meetings the first and second.
I'd like to see us shoot for that time frame, the first and second. If we can't make it, just let us know and let Denise know. We won't schedule it, but
Okay.
to have it on one of those 2 days after the regular either work session or the regular meeting with Commissioner Winters is okay with that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's, we generally a
shoot
lot of
for it.
times ran the staff meeting in the afternoon of the work session or a regular meeting.
Okay. And once we get this updated, then we can make updates as needed. As new legislation comes out, all we have to do is make that change. We haven't been doing that just because there's been so many changes needed, so I'd like to do it.
Yeah.
And then with this. Okay, thank you.
So you'll pull your management team together, your smaller management team, and the draft will get out right away to everybody. You'll meet with us individually. And then for a full-blown staff work session based only on
Can do.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, our next
Thanks,
items
Jay.
are all business.
Your very most favorite topic, training. So during our recent review, there were a few items that the review committee wanted to see us have in place. The first one is for a resolution. In the past, you guys did by consensus allow me to sign transit documents, including our transit application for funding, quarterly reports, those kind of items, but they wanted to see that in resolution form, so that's why that is. The next one of the requirements, actually the next three are requirements because we receive federal monies through 5310 and our Ladders of Opportunity grant. So these are required documents to have in place. The Code of Ethics is just that, and it also has conflict of interest policy included in it. That is for all parties involved in transit mobility. The next one is for zero tolerance. As the agency, we have to have in place a policy for our providers, for their drivers. They also will have to adopt these same policies for their organization, but during my recent drug and alcohol training, all of the members that were there, we had an option of zero tolerance or a one-time chance, and none of them offered one-time chance, they all did zero tolerance. So that's what ours is. There were a few Scrivener errors in terms of some spacing and whatnot that legal counsel had pointed out. I have made those changes on my copy, but I didn't want to have to print out 70 pages for everybody again. So that's that one. And the procurement manual is strictly for purchases using federal dollars, including vehicles, our bus barn, those kind of things. So that we had to have in place. And the last one, oh no, that's it. That's all I have. So short and sweet.
Okay,
So Denise, all the providers are on board and very much aware of all these that are coming
They are.
forward and know that they have to be in compliance.
And they also have to adopt the same policies.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so-
Especially the senior center and Goodwill, because they utilize our transit vehicles.
So, and they're aware, be sure to notify you as soon as those.
Correct.
I would suggest if, he'd put more on you, but I'd suggest for you to try to make their board meetings when they're adopting those, so you can explain them to their board,
Sure,
if you would.
sure, happy to. I've been invited to join during the meetings for the senior center, so I'll be sitting in and helping answer those questions.
Very good,
great.
Yeah.
very good. Thank you.
So Denise, we've got a while, and we'll probably take a break here, but have you got any other department updates?
I
Kevin?
went to a couple trainings last week. The first one was an active shooter training that Deputy Rourke put on. I did let Jay know that I would strongly encourage us to send our employees to that same training, whether we did it in a 2 or 3 day period. It was a good training. We actually even got shot at, so that was kind of interesting, but that training was a good training. The next one I went to was breaking bad communication habits, so that I can do better at conversing with you gentlemen and my department heads. Fleet, we've been working on changing out the vehicle that is no longer functioning for public health. I've worked with my fleet committee. That general consensus is that for now, we assign them our Escape, the 2012 Escape that's in the pool. That's shorten up what we have in pool, but they need a vehicle, so for the remainder of this year, I guess I need your guys' consensus to assign that to them.
Well, I'm there with the question mark, I guess, is over the years, public health has been able to generally purchase their vehicle, then we partnered up. I don't know what kind of dollars they have available for maintenance, vehicle purchase and all that, so I'm good with putting this one over there and then us liquidating the other one. I don't know, I can't remember if it's purchased by general fund or by public health.
It was general fund.
General fund, but we really need to, for our next budget year and for our fleet committee, to know what dollars are available, if any.
Okay,
And if there's none available, then that's, well, at least we start from there, and then whenever budget times come, we can present the need, or do we just add to the pool and we're not department specific? I don't know, we'll start a lot of questions, so.
yeah,
Funding for
that one's a
public
little
health.
unique, just in that they had a Jeep, a 2004 Jeep, that they had purchased with their own dollars. It was definitely time to cycle that vehicle out 2 years ago. So we did, and we assigned them one of our pool vehicles, which was an escape, which is now our defunct vehicle. So it's kind of a fine line thing, I guess, because I took their vehicle away from them. I gave them a pool vehicle, but,
Well,
so.
that's just
Do
fine.
you want me to work with the treasurer then? Is that who I should ask?
Well, truly, it should be the department head who should know our budget and know if there's any dollars. There's so many different funds in public health that they can get it from. Just find out if there's any
Okay.
there. The other thing is, I would think you'd want direction on what to do with the,
Do you want to sell it in this budget year? Do you want to sell it in the next budget year and have to go towards the purchase of whatever?
we can put anything out online at any time. I would say we know that it's dead, let's get rid of it. There's no
Yeah.
reason for it to sit around.
Okay,
It'll only lose value,
okay,
so.
all right, get that
So
working.
get it online, get rid of it,
Okay,
and put that money towards, back into the fleet program.
okay. Other than that, I think that's it for me.
Kevin, did you have anything else you wanted to chat about?
I guess, two things, I could, one being, the first being more of a question when it comes to equipment purchases, and at the face value evaluation, bringing some of my historical methods to here, and maybe not seeing that equipment or the type of equipment. How does that process work, other than identifying in a budget what the county could use moving forward? It comes here for approval.
So within your budget, there's areas for equipment purchasing. I don't know what was set aside this year, and was there anything talked about in the road advisory of new equipment this year?
Not that I remember.
So I think where we're gonna get into reserves this year, I'm not sure that there's anything slated for this year.
Okay.
That doesn't mean, generally that's like a grader or a large capital purchase. I think you've been looking at some smaller purchases for efficiencies, and within your capital purchase part of your budget, there may be dollars available there without pushing your budget out too far.
Okay.
So, I'm willing to, he's the liaison, but I'm the one that knows most of the equipment things, so I'm willing to sit down and talk with you and look at the budget.
Okay.
If it's okay with.
Oh, yeah,
Just,
yeah, that's perfect.
just based on knowing what some of the upcoming work is gonna be, there's some, and they won't be, these are not huge equipment
Right.
purchases, but they would help the efficiencies
Yep.
a lot.
Yeah, and I'll guarantee you, this board here is all about efficiencies. That's, we, you know, long-term efficiencies that come back to the taxpayers. We look forward to that.
Just different ideas that I'm bringing to this organization for methods mostly.
Well, and that's what we were hoping, you know, just a different skill set or a different knowledge base that we can look at the overall program and identify what we can be more efficient.
Second thing being, working with Jay currently to see about posting for some temporary equipment operator spots to gain a pool of candidates that would eventually become full-time. Might be a little different than the way it was done before, but without having specific local knowledge of certain people that want to do that kind of work, I wanna have interviews, lead workers be in on the interviews so that there's buy-in from county employees on the whole process.
I personally would encourage you to get your temporary part-time positions out to notice sooner than later. You have snowplow coming on.
We're doing that right now.
Yeah, yes, I'd like to see the interview process myself. It gives an opportunity for you to ask the questions associated with that department.
Yeah.
And you can research their references and everything. I think that's a great way to do it.
Okay,
Yep, that's all I have.
so Commissioner, we have a little bit of time if you want to.
So I want to just hit Kevin a little bit more. Just a small bit of an update, something I'm very passionate about, the board's very passionate about, the small landfill exemption, and I know that you've already been right in the middle of doing a lot of things there, Kevin. You made contact with Joe Gingrich at DEQ, with Mark Inger, our consultant, and all that. So thank you for that, and if you need any help on that from the board or get in contact with any of the DEQ people, run me down. I've been pretty busy here for a while, but I'm dedicated to helping you make that happen.
The majority of the information that the county needs to submit this group of applications is nearly ready. I had to do a draft operations plan for the new landfill. So between pulling information from Mark Inger and Joe Gingrich and some changes that I think could be implemented better, served for the operator. So this stuff's nearly ready
Great.
to be sent in.
So we haven't had any runoff out there from any.
I just went that way this morning.
I figured you did.
I checked twice over the last rainstorm here, and it's not enough to collect off out of that drain, so.
I drive by it too myself. I'm sure I'll give you a call if I see some happen. So thank you for the work on that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yep. So liaison updates.
Liaison updates. Last week I was in Salem, Silverton. Oregon Transportation Commission was meeting. All the ACT chairs across the state of Oregon were invited, and we got time to basically testify to the OTC. The first round was all about state infrastructure, about partnership, about how do we get in the state of Oregon where we need to get. All of the state highways, a lot of the state highways are way behind time on preservation and improvements. There's huge congestion problems, as we all know, in the Portland area, which affects normal traffic, affects all of our counties also. We have 25,000 hay trucks come out of North Lake. They have to go someplace to get that product to market. So whenever they're held up on the I-5 corridor for 3 to 4 hours, it's a cost to them. So a lot of brainstorming of what could happen. There's some transportation subcommittee, a few legislators was there, they testified. In essence, most of the ACT chairs across use the buzzword, go big. They want the legislature to add a gas tax and go ahead and implement it and make it happen right away. That's a hard sell, I believe. I sort of thought maybe let's go big over a few years where it's phased in with an inflation factor onto it. Was some of the discussion I have. Doesn't mean that's the right way, but our infrastructure across the state is failing. inclusive of county roads, and there's many of them talked about the impact to our county roads as our funding is fallen. And ours are the arteries getting to the state highways. And so there has to be some trigger there to try to get some dollars into the county roads also. So a lot of discussion that way. The second part that the ACT shares across the state of Oregon got to weigh in on was the Connect Oregon process. And Region 4, which we're in, Deschutes County, Lower John Day Act, we were very unified in is that we need a white paper that shows exactly what the process of the Connect Oregon process is. We're all very supportive. We'd like to see it back funded at 100 million instead of 42 million this last year. It's lottery bonds, so don't know if that's gonna happen. But we need to know if the modes ranking is worth this many points, if the regional ranking's worth this many points, and then the final act is worth this many points. We need to know where the most points are to be able to push these projects up to the top. And that's the reason why they asked for the white paper. And I also said, if the local act ranking means 0, why are we going through that process? Because it's a waste of time if it's not going to give any authority to the local. So the second part that we promoted, and mainly I promoted, is every region's guaranteed a certain amount of dollars. And this last time, our region was guaranteed 4.2 million. But it's all through the final act in Portland. And so you're still at statewide ranking, statewide significance. I asked for that portion to be given to each region and the authority through the Super Act, which is our region meeting, for us to be able to put those dollars where we want. Because some of the smaller projects, especially in Lower John Day, will never get funded because the modes rank them so low, they end up tier 3 or 4. And there's no way at the statewide meeting that they're gonna get funded. Give us the money, the authority to spend that money where we need it in our region, and then we'll take the rest of our projects to the statewide significant and fight for that other half of the pot. And I think that's primarily most places support that. I don't know if it'll go anyplace, but I'd like to see some local control. Local means our region. The other thing that came out from the acts going across is we need to put a cap on projects. This year, 20% of all money went to an $8 million rail project in Portland on Amtrak. So 20% of all the dollars went to one project. It's a great project. Nobody's saying it's not a good project. But that takes away from all the other projects that are very good projects across the state also. So there's talk of putting a cap on, you can only apply for this amount. That was intriguing depending on where they put the cap, because we may be one of those counties that would need money above that cap on a project or something, I don't know. But that just makes people be more creative and find a match and be able to come in. So excellent time spent. I got a lot of one-on-one time with the commissioners, the OTC commissioners, outside of the meeting, Director Garrett for ODOT, and a lot of the area managers and area managers and region managers. So it was time well spent.
Well, we appreciate you being there and your relationships that you built that are coming back to us and have been, so.
Well, one of the key sidebar things that I was able to, and I'll just briefly touch on this, is I met with ODOT Rail, Hal Gard from ODOT Rail, and also I apologize, can't remember the name, the young man from AOC that he was there also, that would be a great reference on rail. And so it's not only the meeting time, it's the sidebars, it's the break time you get to talk with higher ups within the ODOT structure, so it was very productive. Thank you.
Very good. Well, I'll just zip through these really quick. I'm gonna have a national call here after this meeting, scheduled for 11:30 with it, but it's a small group of us, but Mike Zupko, our executive director of the cohesive strategies, pulled together a lot on communications, national communication process for, you know, it's raining now and we're heading into winter, but it's getting prepared for future fire seasons and how that communication and integration works in counties and municipalities with the forests and the other federal agencies and state agencies. So it should be an interesting call. I'm scheduled to be back there for our next WIFLIC meeting, which is a transition meeting essentially with the election and the new administration, regardless of who it is. On the 30th, well, it's the week of the 30th of November, but I don't think I'm gonna go. I'm hoping to maybe call into the important parts, but I just don't have without being kind of, I don't know what you'd say, I just don't have a good feeling about going back to that particular meeting. Nothing to do with the group, but just, I think it'd be better off if I did. Working with the local agency and the group that's been put together on the North Warner's area on the 2 chiefs grant, that's the chief of the Forest Service and the chief of NRCS. They have a program, they fund about 10 projects depending upon the amounts annually. I've been involved somewhat, but Amy Marcus, who's kind of heading this up along with Jim Walls, I met with Jim yesterday, he wanted to visit about the possibility of whether or not I would be available and willing to go back there when they're making the selections to promote this particular one. The rankings have been set in the region between the regional forester, Jim Pena, and the director of NRCS here in Oregon. We're number 2 right now. There's a project, a salmon recovery project up in Tillamook that's number 1, and then our project's 2, and Umatill's got a generalized project that's number 3. I suggested that we didn't go after trying to bump the number 1 project, because being that it's salmon recovery and the amount of support they have from many entities, probably better to calculate, do we rank higher potentially than some of the other 9. They typically only award 1 per state, and they don't catch all the states, needless to say, but that'll be a work in progress. Headwaters Economics, they're having a meeting the 1st of November in Boulder, Colorado. Denise did a follow-up call for me here a couple of weeks ago, 10 days ago, something like that. I couldn't hear the message from their group up in Montana, so she followed up with the gal. And then I followed up with her because she sent me another email. But anyway, it was an all expenses paid trip to be part of the group. It was an invitation only. And I told them, unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to be there at that, but to keep us in mind going forward, because it's a lot of public lands work and discussion on moving forward. We've been in contact, we've got a pretty good relationship with that national group. And then last week I was over at the drought task force meetings, the governor's task force on drought. As I've mentioned before, they've had multiple meetings. I attended the first one, didn't think it was probably something that I could invest the time that was necessary, because they were gonna have 3 meetings a month and then 3-day commitments to go to those. So I was staying in touch, I was getting the minutes, the agendas, calling in occasionally on some of the subject matter information. Representative Helms out of Beaverton and Senator Roeblen are both the co-chairs, and they had reached out about me attending this last one, so I did, and I'm glad I did. Mainly because the long-term perspective on making a significant impact when we have those drought years was not in the forte, you might say, of the existing group, and they wanted a presentation on my view of what would make a difference for water availability. So I was able to do that, had some great discussions with Representative Helm, and he very knowledgeable about what's going on here in Lake County and many other arenas. And I think, so we've got a member of the legislature that doesn't represent us, that actually cares about what we're doing and is very intrigued by it. So as we move forward with some of these projects and needs, I think we may have some support in the Portland metro area. So that's it. Mr. Nash, Kathy.
Hello.
How are you folks?
Good.
Good. We've got you scheduled as a timed item at 10. We don't know how many seats we'll have left available when everyone comes in to hear your presentation, Mr. Nash.
I'm sure it'll be standing room only.
I think it will be.
So why don't we take a break till 10?
I think we'll
Make
just.
sure if there's
yeah.
any public that's seen it on the agenda wants to come in.
Yep. That'll be great.
You got here just in time for break.
There you go.
We are now moved along to our final item of the day.
Oh, we're
Agenda
in.
item.
Good final item.
He's the only one that got a bright green sheet, or they don't know if it's a bright green sheet.
Because they're non-county.
Because they're non-county, I see.
Ah.
Oh, then we can't have no money.
That's
Oh, we're-
not, that is not what that says, because that's the color of money.
That is a color of money, and I think it's very
I
appropriate.
think we've been supporting in the past.
Yep, so we're back in session. 10 o'clock, Lake County ESD update, mentor program request.
Thank you very much for having us. I have Kathy Miles and Heather Gibson with me today from our Youth Mentor Program. First, I thought I would give a little bit of an ESD update as I do a couple of times a year. As I mentioned again earlier, we had a very exciting spring and summer. We hired 4 new licensed employees. We were just very, very pleased with the hires that we made. We hired Sammy Withers as our new itinerant special education specialist. She works with Paisley, Plush, and ADL. Formerly, Sammy was with the Youth Mentor Program. Some people say we stole her from the Youth Mentor Program. That's a little bit harsh, but anyway, you know, Sammy's a Lake County girl and fitting right in up in Paisley and ADL and Plush, and so we're really pleased with that. Late in the summer, we lost our second special education person who took a position in Texas, and we were lucky in that District 7 and the ESD had been talking to a couple from the Portland area. She's an elementary teacher and he was a special education teacher, and so we were really lucky to be able to hire Will Hicks as our special education teacher in District 7. And he comes licensed, experienced, very qualified, so we lucked out that position late. We also replaced Marcia Nichols. Marcia retired for the second time. We could not get her to come back for a third time, and so we were very lucky in that we also were able to hire a Lake County native, Amy Fortune, who was several years ago, Amy Morrison, graduated from Lakeview High School. Extensive elementary teaching experience, and then also 6 years as an instructional coach for Southern Oregon ESD. And so that's the work that she'll be doing for us, working with our teacher mentoring program, our professional development programs around the county. So we were very, very happy to be able to hire Amy. Then the fourth and final piece, which is also kind of exciting, we partnered with the hospital to hire a speech language pathologist. And we've been hurting for speech language pathologists for a number of years. Very difficult to hire, but by partnering with the hospital, we're splitting her time. Her name is Alicia Montoya, and she's doing a fabulous job for us. So we're really, really pleased. Very good hiring season for us.
So can I throw out one suggestion for Marcia in case you ever want to try and recruit? If you were to get Judge Nichols to maybe retire and be at home, she might be more than willing to come out of retirement and not be there all the time.
Could be, but I've talked to Rob, and I don't think he is in any rush.
No.
So, well, the next item on my agenda is the kindergarten camp, I wanted to give you an update on that. As you know, I came to you last spring with a request for the county commissioners to be a partner in that project. We served 41 kids in Lakeview and Paisley this summer. Lakeview did 8 days of kindergarten camp for, I think, 4 or 5 hours a day. Paisley did, I believe it was 12 days at like 4 hours a day or 3 hours a day, something like that. Anyway, between the two of them, they served 41 students. In talking with the kindergarten teachers in Lakeview and Mary O'Leary up in Paisley, it really made a huge difference. The start of the year was much more productive and smooth than it otherwise would have been. Particularly, we targeted the kids that hadn't been in any type of preschool or early learning experience, and so it really smoothed things out at the start of the year, and is continuing to pay dividends. So thank you very much for that support. It was a great partnership between the county, the ESD, the local school districts, Head Start, and so it really went well. We started the year very early with our 3rd yearly visit with Marcia Moyer, a consultant that we've been having working with the school districts for the last 3 years. 2 years ago, district administrators trained with Marcia on the new rubric-based teacher evaluation systems. Last year, you might remember, we had a day in August and a day in October where we pulled all of the educators from around the county into Paisley, very exciting. Anyway, this year we had Marcia actually get into the schools. She spent a day in North Lake, a day in Paisley, a day in Lakeview, basically visiting teachers, observing classes. We set up a schedule where usually 3 or 4 other teachers were helping observe one teacher, and it went very well. Marcia was very impressed with the quality of instruction in Lake County. She was particularly impressed, I think, really with Paisley and their ability to be resourceful and provide programs in face of pretty daunting economic challenges. So anyway, that went very well. An update on some of our grants. We continue to receive early learning grants. That was part of our resources in providing the kindergarten camps around the county. But we also, in addition to kindergarten camps, we're continuing to promote our kindergarten readiness and kindergarten engagement activities. We hold those monthly here in Lakeview. They hold them in North Lake. They're doing it a little bit different in Paisley, but much the same. We've just recently written another grant to try to expand those and also expand our kindergarten camp. We know that North Lake has been a little bit of an outlier because they've had an Oregon Community Foundation grant. This is their 3rd and final year of that grant. Starting next year, they will be more participating with us in our grants. They've been doing exactly the same types of work, but we're making plans to include North Lake in those programs. We want to expand our kindergarten camp. We want to expand some of our engagement activities. In fact, you'll probably be seeing that we are going to try to put on a family engagement series called Ready for Kindergarten with preschool parents in 4 sites around the county here in the coming months, if we get the grant.
And Mr. Nash, just a quick question on the North Lake Oregon Community Grant. Is that the one that had a lot of requirements on it that didn't seem reasonable, and I think it was a different grant?
I think you're thinking of a different grant. You're probably, when we talk, the way you describe that, when we talk about
I was trying to be
unreasonable
careful, we're being
requirements.
filmed, so state might be watching.
Well, I'll just be honest. There is around the state a grant program called Preschool Plans. The intent of that grant was to broaden preschool opportunities. The problem is, and the reason it's not being utilized in Lake County and many other places around the state, is the requirements of that grant in order to receive it were extremely high. Commissioner Kessler's somewhat familiar. He's been to a number of meetings on this, and he's told me that the 2 of us are going to go to more meetings and really get out the word. rather than just, supplying much needed resources, it really sets some pretty high requirements in terms of having to what you had to pay the teacher, how many instructional hours you had to provide, and many other items. And it made it very difficult to access that money. We tried, had many conversations with people around the county, but we're just not quite there yet. We're hoping that in this next legislative session, they'll continue the funding. It certainly sounds like the governor and others are very supportive of the program, but hopefully they'll adapt it a little bit, so it'll make it easier for entities in Lake County to access those dollars.
So, two quick items. One, that's the one separate Superintendent Kerr was talking to me about.
Yeah.
And two, and I asked him that when I met with him up at the school, do you folks have a person that we can contact in the legislature that would be key to this?
We're working on that. I can tell you, just a few weeks ago, I was at a state ESD superintendent meeting, and this was on the agenda about, because it's really not just a Lake County or even Eastern Oregon, rural Oregon problem. It was a problem throughout the state. I haven't seen the final figures yet, but I know they intended to increase preschool slots around the state by a certain amount, a certain figure, and I know that they have fallen well short of that.
Yeah.
And so the conversation is going to be about how do we try to improve that program so that those slots actually get out to the families that need them. And so right now, I can't give you a name or a phone number of a specific person, but I can tell you we're working on that. And there is going to be, I think, during the legislative session, those conversations. It's a little tricky in that you've got the early learning division and ODE. ODE is K through 12. The early learning division, even though it's really part of ODE, they're the head of the early learning division reports directly to the governor rather than to the head of ODE or to the deputy superintendent. And so it's a little bit murky in terms of who you talk to and how you get these things done. And I can't.
Well,
I don't claim to be an expert on this
no.
by any stretch.
But it just seems like, not to belabor this for our presentation today, but they're making the resources available and the intended outcomes are not happening.
Yeah.
And they should be asking the question why and actually trying to correct it because they're committed to doing it. So.
No, the ESDs in the state of Oregon are committed to making that happen.
Mhm.
It's very unfortunate.
Yep. Okay.
So lots of things going on with early learning grants. In fact, we just submitted another one to help do some of those things that I was talking about. I will say this, particularly the kindergarten camps were supported by another state grant called the Regional Achievement Collaborative, and Kevin Kessler were here, Commissioner Kessler. I would give him kudos on that because he is one of the people that really helped us get that grant and kindergarten camp So, another area, science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, as you've probably heard. We just, late in the summer, received 2 STEM grants around Lake County. One is a $50,000 grant from ODE. Another one, we're part of a 5-county consortium through Portland State in terms of supporting science, technology, engineering, and math. We have those resources. We're utilizing those to support professional development, field trips, project-based learning. The thing we want to try to do, and where we're really working hard, is to help the schools partner with the land agencies, private entities, in order to have kids be part of actual hands-on types of projects. And so that's, hopefully you'll be hearing more about that. We're just in the process of trying to get some people signed up as facilitators in terms of these STEM projects. So we're very excited about that.
So did you just recently attend the STEM conference up, I think, in Big River?
Yeah, Ken, yeah.
Oh, did
I
you?
was not able to attend.
Okay.
So he's instrumental in that work. And then a grant that we just sent out the door last week that we've got our fingers crossed is a college and career ready grant. It's somewhat similar to the STEM grant to provide for resources for CTE programs, particularly professional development for instructors in high schools. Also support for high school instructors to go and meet with college instructors to provide more dual credit opportunities, both vocational as well as academic in our 3 high schools. Provide also for guest speakers, college fairs, job fairs, things of that nature. And so we're pretty excited about that. That's pretty much my update. If you have any other questions before we launch into the next order of business.
Sounds like things are going well.
They really, really, truly are. We're very pleased. Things seem to be going very, very well. And compared to the previous biennium, we're not seeing as many grants for things like teacher professional development, but we're seeing it more targeted in terms of these STEM grants and CTE grants and other learning grants. And so we're able to really do some things with that money. So we're pleased. Well, I have Kathy and Heather with me today, and I'm gonna introduce this and then step out of the way. They're here to represent the Youth Mentor Program. This is a program that has been around for
We're on our 7th year.
7th year. It's been a vital program. I saw this as a high school teacher and a high school administrator. In fact, I can name names of kids that I don't think would have graduated without the support of the mentor program. They have served dozens and dozens of kids over the years. It's been a great partnership. It's been something that the ESD, I think, can be very proud of, being part of this, although we don't do much of the work at the ESD. We write some checks, and as I've always said, the most exciting part of the ESD down there, whenever there's anything kind of wild and crazy going on, like loud noises or anything, it's usually because the Youth Mentor Program has got some sort of a project going, but it's just been a vitally important program for at-risk kids. They have a proven track record of success. Like I say, I've seen the kids walk across the stage getting diplomas that wouldn't have otherwise done that. But the reason we're here is after 7 years, they're finding it more difficult to get grant funding. Keep in mind that this is a program that before these ladies can work with kids at all, they have to raise a bunch of money to be able to support the program and do what they do. And I've always said my hat is just totally off to the mentor program because before they do what they do, they have to raise all the money in order to pay their salaries, buy the materials, pay for the activities for the kids. We're hoping that this difficulty in obtaining grants is short-lived. Kathy's, I think, got some good ideas, and we're not panicking or throwing in the towel. What we want to do is make sure that the program has sufficient funds for this year, which they do, but also we want to make sure that we keep enough sufficient cash reserves for next year as well. In this regard, we're coming to the commissioners today asking for support, specifically $5,000.
So, I'll speak first maybe.
Okay.
And I know Kathy and Heather are gonna talk.
Sure.
I think we completely support this. Within this, with what you just said, Mr. Nash, this year you're okay, next year is what you're really looking to build upon. And I'm not gonna suggest we don't have the money somewhere, but this type of thing, specifically on any kind of ongoing basis, it's really handy to build it into the April budget time. So I guess I'd ask how critical it is that we make a affirmative decision with cash in hand right now, as opposed to an affirmative decision that we build it into the budget if the board is supporting of that.
I'll just be very brief here, and then I'll turn it over to Kathy. They have the funds to make it through this year. But my concern, and the reason for this request, and the reason I'll be making the same request to my board tonight, is that I want to look for the future, because if they're unsuccessful on their 3 outstanding grants they have right now, that means that they will burn through virtually all of their cash reserves this year. And that will make it very difficult, even if they get some grants next year, like to be fiscally responsible and like to have that little cushion there, just because when you're living on these grants and you never have any real certainty of what you're gonna get, I think it's important to have that. And that certainly that's why we're here. I do know that in the past, there was support, so I don't know if it was
Yes.
part of your budget, but there was some
Yes.
support.
2 years now.
I hear that loud and clear. Certainly, I think had we known that we were gonna get turned down a few grants, that we probably would have come forward in your budgeting process. But unfortunately, at that time, we believed that some of those grants were gonna happen when they did, so.
Well, I just asked that question for
It's
options
really-
as to how we support.
Yeah, to me, it's really about the future of the program.
Mhm.
Like I say, yeah, this year, they can make it through, but if they get turned down on their other grants, next year is gonna look pretty good.
Sure.
I have a lot to say, but I want to get a presentation.
Okay, I'm not really sure how much of a presentation. I will say that we have been extremely fortunate in the past 6 years. We've been able to secure multi-year grants, and that is, that just frees you up in order to make it so that you can serve the kids instead of constantly scratching for dollars, as Mr. Nash said. Unfortunately, our grants, the majority of them ended in June 2016. Unfortunately, I've been out of the program for approximately 8 months, it seems like that. It's been a long time. So for the last 8 months, I have basically been away from the program, and not to say that I am the program, but when one person is trying to manage everything, as Sammy Withers had to do while I was out with my medical issues, it didn't leave a lot of time. And yes, I still was able to write some grants, but not sure it was up to the caliber it should have been, as seen in the fact that we didn't receive some of the grants that I thought we would receive. It is hard in Lake County to find funding because a lot of the grants that we have found end at Klamath County. They'll talk about Southern Oregon, they'll talk about, serving Oregon, but when you actually get right into it, they stop. It's Josephine, Jackson, and Klamath. There are tons of grants if we could just move our county line over a little bit. But they specifically say those different counties. So we're left to go towards the bigger foundations who get more requests than a lot of the smaller foundations. So we're left trying to make a smaller program look big in terms of how we're serving. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit better, and maybe I'll work with Mr. Nashmore, because he's been putting numbers together, about how we make it look bigger in what we're serving in Lake County. If you talk to the different mentoring programs, we're pretty close with Klamath County. Debbie Vogt is my mentor from that program and has done a lot of work over here for us as well. And they talk about they're only serving 70 to 80 kids, and they're Klamath County and they have more resources, whereas we were serving between 20 to 30. We're down now, and again, I'm going to attribute that to we haven't been able to recruit. I'm the recruiting tool, and I do a lot of forcing. I do a lot of, Denise looks at me like, yes, I know. I think in Heather Gibson, whom we haven't heard a lot from today, I think you're gonna find that same tenacity of going out into the community and saying, you need to be a mentor. And when you build the numbers, you will build the program. So I'm confident that given some time, that we can build this back up and we can start getting the grants. I've already spoken with the Ford Family Foundation. we just finished a 3-year grant with them, and we were their first mentoring grant for them. And I've spoken with the representatives that I know. While I was in Roseburg during treatment, I went and visited so that they'd see my face again. And they encouraged me to reapply in January, because then the funds could be distributed in July, the end of June, early July, because they have a 12-month waiting period. So we just finished in June, so they could approve us, but they couldn't give us any funding until July. I am pretty positive that I can reapply to the Oregon Community Foundation, because they have so many different funds that, and they are so supportive of this program. Of course, they're the original grantees. And they were very supportive, and they've been very impressed with what we've been able to do with the program here in Lake County. We have served at least 54 individual students throughout these 6.5 years in the one-on-one program only, and that's kind of hard when you look at the volunteer pool in Lakeview. It is only in Lakeview one-on-one, because Paisley and North Lake determined they did not need and or could support one-on-one in Paisley and North Lake. We spoke with the school administration a lot about that. So when you're looking at the same volunteer pool as everyone else, it's hard to come up with one-on-one. So we've developed the team mentor programs, and we have a team mentor program in Paisley, which is serving anywhere from 10 to 15 kids, and knowing the numbers in Paisley, that's pretty good for 4th through 8th grade. And we just went there a couple weeks ago, and it was kind of interesting when we asked them how many had been, and the hands just went up, didn't they? I was kind of shocked at how many had actually participated out of Paisley. We've got a great new coordinator there in Shannon Hart, and then Ed Nichols is going to join us, which is great to have a male come on again this year. We lacked that last year. And he's both a pastor and a bus driver, and he helps out at the school. So he's very dedicated, as well as Tina Aguilar will also help when she can. So Paisley's going well. North Lake has just come on like gangbusters. It's just been amazing what's happened up in North Lake, because it took us a long time to get into North Lake. There's a lot of resistance. We are serving anywhere from 10 to 20 kids a month up there. The numbers vary depending upon what they're going to be doing. We've got it where they can get off the bus, take the bus from the school, go over to the Christmas Valley Booster Club, and then the parents come and pick them up. So there's only one trip. So that's helped a lot with getting kids there. We've got a great leader. She works at the Christian school. She was formerly the Head Start, I believe, Cindy Reed. So she's in charge, as well as being backed up by Sheriff Shumway, and we've got 3 other great volunteers up there. And in Lakeview, we have the 2 team mentor program. We do the 4th, 5th, and 6th, and we do the 7th and 8th, and we do it here in Memorial Hall. So we're thankful for that we get to do that without a cost. And we're seeing, we were kind of surprised, 7th and 8th grade we thought would not go this year. We had trouble with it last year. But the other night we had 7 kids, which was great. And they were both male and female. Last year they were all males. 4th, 5th, and 6th we had 11 kids. And that's the first night. We're up against football and soccer. Because we're this, you can't pick a night. We had several parents contact us and say, could we pick a different day? Could we pick a different time? And so we're trying to figure out what would work, because we're trying to accommodate. But we have served in the last 3 to 4 years over 90 students in the Teen Mentor program. And that's a lot of kids. That's different kids. We actually track how many kids show up, and we reward them for coming. So at the end of the year, they get a prize for how many times they've attended. And we then give them a party for the class that has the most students attend. So we're trying to make it where they're bringing other kids. Last year, we partnered with the Lake District Hospital, the CHIP program, for the Go Girls program, and it's for at-risk 7th through 12th grade girls. We continued it. Last year, we had 12 girls start and 9 girls finish. Very positive outcomes with where they started and where they ended. And in fact, some of those girls came back. We started it again just last week. Heather is in charge of that program and facilitating it with 3 other facilitators. And we do have, they are paid facilitators, and the reason we're doing that, we pay them $14 an hour, which isn't much for what they're doing because they're having to put in time learning the curriculum. It is curriculum-based, and it's talking about how the media portrays women, how to be more assertive. We're talking about eating disorders. We're actually talking about sexual matters, and, you know, not going real in-depth because we gotta be really careful there, but we are talking about, you know, drugs and alcohol and what that pertains to. We had 8 girls. 8 girls show up this time, and a few more have said, well, they wanted to bring their friends, and we've invited them to do that. So this year, the mentor program is actually doing a lot of the funding of that. The CHIP program had $3,800 left over from their grant that they received, and they gave that to us to go ahead and use for the mentor program. With part of that, we brought in a trainer that she talked about adolescent brain development and how to communicate with teens. And we actually offered that training to the schools also, and we had a few teachers show up for that. Because it's important that we get the information out there that the kids that we're serving are the kids that, quite honestly, if I'd had some of this training before I was a teacher, I could have been one heck of a better teacher. Because you don't think about, when you go through teacher training, you learn about how to reach them, how to do this, how to manage a classroom, and now it's even more about admin. This is actually, the training was about how to reach the kids that are not living in a normal environment, and maybe just school is their only safe haven, but they get there late, they don't have their homework done, they don't have the money for the needs that they have. And so how do you deal with that? And so we're working with that with our mentors. It was open to our mentors also. We had some mentors attend with that. So as Bob said, the mentor program serves a whole different segment of the kids in this community, a whole different segment. We're not saying they're all, you know, these 3-headed monsters. They're normal kids with a lot of challenges. And there are no other programs in the county really that service that. And we've had great successes. We've had 3 graduate in our 7 years, which is awesome. One kid came in as a 7th grader who no one believed was going to graduate, and he graduated. And the neat part is he is going through the process to become a mentor himself. So a major impact on that kid. So, you know, we're not looking at the big numbers that everyone else has, 300 kids going to whatever, but the kids we're hitting are the kids that are falling through the cracks if we don't take them. A lot of them are. Encouraging them. We've gone out in the community, you know, we've got money to send them for swimming in the summer when they have nothing else to do. We've got kids who are on probation that are in our program because if they don't get into our program, where do they go?
You change those numbers over to percentage, and our percentage is higher than.
And that's what I need to do. I
Absolutely,
really need to do
absolutely,
that
Absolutely.
when we start looking at it, and that's what I'm going to need to do. So we have been very fortunate. I've saved $44,000 over the 6.5 years with our fundraising, and that has been mostly fundraising and different dollars coming in because you have to spend the grant money. That's sad, but it's just like any government dollars. If you don't spend them, you lose them. So we have spent the grant money, but we do have the $44,000 reserve, and I can make the program work this year with a lot of pinching, shall we say. We're trying very hard. Heather is almost full-time and will be full-time in November if all goes well, if we can make this work. I am still part-time. I am semi-retired. Had hoped to retire a little sooner, but won't be. Because to me, this program is important. It's kind of like my baby, you know. So It's hard to.
Retired is 50, 60 hours a week for you.
Well, no, because I'm under PERS, I have to stay down there.
You're never off work.
Don't tell Sarah. Whatever you do, don't tell Sarah that. Because according to Boley, I am.
Okay, you are.
I am. So I did give you 3 different budgets. The one that I am the most confident about really is the Umpqua Bank grant, because they came to me. So in essence, the budget without Reeser Garcia, but with Umpqua Bank, is the one that I would look at the most. And with that, using it, we would still use about half of our reserves, which would leave us with about $20,000. If they came through, and if all of our fundraising came through, if Rotary comes through, which I've got to call into them. So we would just have to raise about $15,000, which historically we can. We have raised close to anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 every year in the county. However, again, Lake County is hit hard by so many different organizations, and it seems like every year a new one pops up, and they're gonna fundraise also, and so you can only ask for so much from the community. I haven't put on here yet, but I do intend to try to get on the agenda for the city, because I've never asked the city yet, and we serve kids in the city. So that's something that I would go to. Need to do a little bit more research to see how much they could possibly afford. So I'll be talking to Sharon Faulkner, drawing those resources that you know. But that is the grant that I'm the most confident, or that's the scenario I'm the most confident about right now. And I say that Garcia, we applied to them last year, never heard from them, even though they had told us it was a pretty good little grant we could ask for. And then all of a sudden, about a month ago, they wrote to me and said, so we didn't have any money last year, but would you like us to resubmit your grant this year for consideration? So resubmitted the grant, still haven't heard back. Sent emails and made phone calls, but they don't answer to it. So, and Reeser, I'm not as confident.
Well, the challenges with the grants not only is getting them, is their dollars only for specific things.
Exactly.
Yeah, which makes it real challenge as you're trying to fund operations
Right.
and
Bank is,
wages and stuff,
yeah,
so
yes.
that's a challenge.
And a lot of grants, a lot of the grants that are coming out nowadays are for startup.
Yeah.
Or for something real physical. You know, I'm gonna go back somehow with Project Collins McDonald here locally. They don't fund operating costs, and unfortunately.
Very few do.
Yeah,
Very few.
and that's why you have to go to the bigger foundations a lot of the times too. Both Reeser and Umpqua Bank would be general operating. And Garcia, we proposed, we kind of did a broad proposal, so we could fund a lot of the activities that we do with the kids. So we went with Go Girls, we went with the one-on-one quarterly activities that we do, and we did the team mentoring within that $5,500. So.
Well, I tell you, great, I mean, we could talk for hours. You know, I have some passion towards what the mentor program is. The dollars saved to society by the mentor program would pay for it if there's any way to leverage those. I mean, when you get one kid or family out of the system,
Yes.
that's savings to society of bunches of money.
Right.
As I've seen some of the kids go through it, and I've seen some of the people working on it, it's been very successful. The team concept, I was on the North Lake Chamber Board whenever you and Lynette, I think it was, came up. I actually still have pictures of them from that meeting, you know, and it was hard to break through that shell up there. Thank you for making that happen. I think that's huge.
Yeah,
I think
they've been
it's
great partners now.
Huge deal.
I think Dave Kerr has a lot of hand in that one.
Yeah. Your budget's laid out here. As I've been on chamber boards, I've been on other boards, the best thing you can do is have an unappropriated fund balance or contingency and all that. And that's what you've worked so hard to get to. And that's what you're trying to preserve by getting dollars today is the one that you say that you have your best shot at, you're still using half of your reserve. So that means that you gotta work hard to build those reserves
I
back
know.
up.
Yeah,
So I really appreciate how hard you've worked to have some dollars to continue the program. Because people that budget and spend it all within that year, there's no guarantee for the program to
Right.
go on.
right.
So you're being very proactive in trying to find a way to sustain this, and I appreciate those thoughts very much. And if the county was, I don't have any absolute ideas exactly where to come up with the money, but if we were to, that would be flexible. You could use that for whatever, which would be a very positive for you guys. I don't know, I'm sure you guys have thought of every agency, every private business, everything to try to get buy-in, but whenever this is a savings to societies, whether it's mental health, juvenile, which are county, hospital, schools and everything, it seems like there could be at least some small buy-ins from some of these other ones that have an impact, $500 or $200, $100 or anything within some of their budgets is that this is saving society money, this is saving our programs money. We need to support this and give back, so I don't know what ones you haven't asked or what ones that are there that probably if you articulated to them, we're saving you money at the end of the day.
Right.
Help us keep this going.
Well, the juvenile crime prevention dollars, we have had, I understand this is our last year, but they keep telling me that every year.
Well,
It seems like they keep rolling money,
It depends
or the
what the-
Early Learning Council.
depends on what the legislature
Right.
is, and that's
Yeah.
through the county also, but
Yeah,
like I said, I don't have the answer today. By tomorrow, we might be able to, I will work hard to try to find a way to find the $5,000. I don't know, as Dan says, once our budget is set, then we only have very few places that we can try to leverage some dollars. Naturally, it would be the video lottery side because it can be used for education. So I'm usually right on top of where that budget's at. And I
yeah.
think we're fine there, but I need to check into that. And then we also, we have to, is this a one-time request? Are you thinking about getting through this year and then coming during budgeting time and presenting probably?
Well, that's, I don't honestly know and have an answer to that, Brad. My hope is that I would be able to go out to the foundations and maybe not quite as much from the county as this one request, because you did fund me for 2 years in a row for $1,000. And part of that is just showing that you support us. And when you go to these grants, foundations, they always ask that. Is the county buying in, or the community buying in? And to this point, we've been able to do that very well. We've had you, we've had Rotary, we've had Seroptimus, we've had Lions, we've had the businesses amazingly. I mean, we get anywhere from $10,000 to $11,000 a year from the businesses.
Well, I would encourage for you to always be engaged in our budget process.
Okay.
As we go forward.
Okay.
And that.
And that would be, when would I need that request?
Usually in January, you want to work with our budget officer, treasurer on
Okay.
open request type things. Start about then. Our actual budgeting is in April, but there's timelines before that
Okay.
for open requests to come forward.
And that would be
Yeah,
in.
just check in with me.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. I can do that.
One other thing I wanted to say, and I believe this is happening without any, I don't know if you're putting any energy or anything toward it, but when you mentor these kids and everything, in a sense, we're also mentoring some parents that need help.
Yeah, we are.
And educating some parents that need help, which is also savings to society as we get some parents that maybe are using the system in certain ways. I'm trying to stay politically correct here.
I know.
But it's not only the kids we're reaching, it's families that we're reaching.
Yes.
And we're making a difference when those kids get their diploma, or even if they get their GED or whatever they do, we're making a difference.
Yeah.
Everybody's making a difference.
It's been a real community effort, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And we actually have, tomorrow night, we're doing a new mentor training, and we've targeted 18 or 20 people that we're still working on. Tomorrow night, we'll probably have at least 6 or 7 of them who are, they've done the fingerprints, they've turned in the app, and that's what's been missing too with our numbers. Again, recruitment for a year, we had nothing.
Well, I'll use this, you're vicious in a nice way. Kathy Meyer, if you get on her list, the only way to get off of it is serve your time. And that's a positive. So,
Right, and I'm teaching Heather to do that.
Well, you tried to get me on that list, and
I have tried.
I just have too many irons in the fire to do that, but I've helped in other ways. But
Yes.
anyways,
And, every way matters. I mean, if I see you at the fundraiser sitting, Bob's there, he'll do it, he empties the garbage cans, and that's where we've had a lot of support, and that's where we're still, it is hard until we've come up with a new tactic, and I'm working on Ken Kessner, that it's only 52 hours a year that we're asking out of 11,900 and some. It's 52 hours. So that's what we tell people now, instead of an hour a week for a year, they get a little nervous. We just tell, it's only 52 hours a year, you can do that. It's less than, that's a little over 1 week of work.
well, what happens is you get the people in there, and then they go way over the 52
They do.
hours.
They do.
They really do, because,
Yeah.
but anyways, Commissioner, I apologize, I get pretty excited talking about the successes that they've done over the years.
No, I totally agree. And I think we will do our darndest between now and tomorrow to find the money.
I appreciate that.
And I second that, I hope there's no doubt you need to come to us at budget time as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
we can do that. I
And I
appreciate
think
you.
that offline we'll do some other, I don't know all the rules around some of our other departments that we might have means to provide funding that does have a longer term effect as far as the societal costs, that we make a little investment here now,
Mhm.
and we don't have that big cost later, so.
Yeah, we'd have to look at mental health and see what they do.
Well,
Go ahead.
I just,
You looked at me when you said that. That makes me nervous, Commissioner.
yeah.
And she looked at me too.
I mean,
I would see
you
it.
briefly touched on a commissioner with adult corrections. I mean, we spend a lot of money way after the fact.
Well, and I will say the Commission on Children and Families, and then the juvenile crime prevention dollars, we have been getting those
Yes.
for, 4 years, 5 years
Yeah.
maybe? They just keep bringing, we never apply, they just keep giving us money.
Yeah,
We like that.
I'm just more curious about the adult side of the funding
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the state visitors.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of your mentors over the years have been OHA members, and really go to the youth days on that and everything. I don't know the guidelines on Rocky Mountain Health, Ducks Unlimited, OHA, those nonprofits that promote youth in the outdoors and the hunting and fishing side. I don't know if they have any, they have their big fundraisers that are all local dollars that get distributed out and different things. I don't
Yeah.
know if you've thought of that.
I haven't thought of them.
Well, and you said something, I know it's really difficult when you're living on grants, but that was kind of intriguing to me, and that those dollars are for physical things, or I don't know how you phrased it, Kathy, but I'm wondering, other entities that need or can meet that requirement of what those dollars are for, if there's an opportunity for those other entities to apply for those dollars and free up a $5,000 or $10,000 block of money that's discretionary spending for the mentor program. You know, just kind of an exchange of dollars, but gives you more flexibility.
Well, it was really nice with the CHIP program, when the
Mhm.
hospital managed the Go Girl money. It was easier when we paid for some of the things,
Yeah.
and we just provided manpower and that. And, you know, I think what is really neat is the comments we get from a lot of our mentors, which I don't know if you saw in there, we have, I think it's, I've gone a little on the low side, at least a 65% retention rate on our mentors. We have some who have been with us since the program started, and they're walking their kids through, and the kids, we thought they would go away in the high school years, and they're not. They're hanging on for dear life. Sometimes they don't meet, maybe they meet once or twice a month, which is okay because it's a different relationship, but those kids refuse to give it up. They just hang on. We started out in second, third, fourth grade, and now we're up in the freshmen, sophomore, juniors. We don't have as many little kids now as we have the older kids,
Mhm.
because our mentors have discontinued. And so we're trying to work back down to the young kids to bring them back up again.
So this request for this budget year, if we were to approve tomorrow of the amount, as Commissioner Shannon mentioned there, we may want to talk to a few of our departments, maybe commingle dollars from department or something. When would you need the money by?
I don't know that there's a definite date, because as Bob said, the ESD, it's really handy being with ESD, they just keep paying the bills for us.
Well, there's no, I think the best way to put that is that there's no imminent need, there's no pressing need.
So if we approved it and the dollars came 30 days from now.
Oh,
Easily.
that would not be a problem.
Yeah,
Because I think Commissioner Shannon triggered some of my thoughts that we probably have right now that we need to investigate, so.
yeah, yeah, and again, you know, not to say we don't want, but we would still make it through, we just wouldn't have a buffer. We
Well,
would not have.
Well,
a
it gets back to Commissioner Winter's point, Kathy, you've been very judicious in your spending and everything. We want to help you be able to continue that, not run it all out.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you don't want to do that, you've proven that over the years, so.
Right.
We're here to help.
And we think we can keep her going. I think Heather, she's new, she's quiet sometimes.
She's
here.
quiet.
She's very, very quiet, but give her a chance.
Yeah.
I'm excited. She's new, August? And I have been throwing everything at her. This is probably our busiest time of the year right now, because school's starting and we're starting all the programs again after the summer. And I think her head's spinning around and around, but she's jumping in there, and the biggest thing is she has a heart. And that's, you know, you can train a skill, but you can't train a heart. And that's what you need with the mentor program.
So Heather, are you comfortable giving us a little bit of background on yourself? And how do you get
Yeah,
there?
absolutely. So I grew up here, and I've lived in Medford for about 15 years. My son's grown up, and so I decided it was time to come back, and he came with me, and he really loves it. So I have a lot of different skills. I worked at KDRV Channel 12 before I came over here. So that helps me, I think, in as far as promoting and advertising and that kind of thing. I'm very confident with that kind of stuff, but a lot of my background, I mean, I was a teen mother. I was a teen mother here in Lakeview. I had my son at 17, and so I know how difficult that is, you know, to raise a kid when I was just a kid. And so that has always been something that I want to talk to kids about. The Go Girls program is really a great opportunity to, you know, teach those girls about things that they might not otherwise think about. So And I just love kids, you know, my son's grown up, he's 23. I still have the motherly instinct for the babies and the kids, and I still, you know, in a different mindset now, being older, want to interact with kids, and I love it. And so that's, I think, where a lot of my drive comes from, you know, my heart is there with the kids. And, yes, Kathy's throwing a lot at me, and I am quiet, and then she probably wonders what I'm thinking most of the time, but, I'm just soaking it all in, and I'm trying to learn from her, you know, about the program and how to sustain it and what's gonna happen moving forward.
So what all did you do at KDRB?
At KDRB, I did the programming and what they call trafficking. So all of the programs, I programmed everything as far as like commercials, the timing for that, which proved to be very difficult to figure out. And then all of everything you see on TV was something that I had done, programmed. And so basically I was in front of computer screens all day and just make sure that the commercial ads, you know, made it on air. So the program logs that they followed were created by me.
She also worked at, it's not KO, it wasn't KORV at that time.
It was KQIK.
KQIK.
Yeah.
She worked out at KQIK.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've worked for Don Liddico. So I have, you know, a few people here that know me well, and it's fun to be back and see everyone
Yeah.
again.
I don't mean to be personal, but you still have family here?
I do, yeah. Most of my family is here. My mother lives here, my stepdad, my aunts and uncles and cousins, with the exception of my brother. I think most of my family's here.
Great.
Yep.
Well, glad you're here.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Oh, we
you.
really
Yes.
appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to talk.
Oh,
Yeah.
appreciate the updates and all that you're doing in all of the arenas. It's just, I mean, it's the foundation of having a successful bunch of young people in our future that'll be our leaders in the future.
That's the scary
You've
part.
got your fingerprints on all of them, so
Yeah.
we really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hand stuff. Did Brandy yell at Amy for remaining on the board as president?
He doesn't know anything about that.
I don't know, are they both on the board or?
No, but Brandy didn't want Amy to be president again because she's going back to school. It happens.
Oh, is she? Is she really? She's going for her master's right now.
I know, but she's staying on as my president of my board, and that's good.
Okay. News to me.
So, Commissioner, anything else before we adjourn today?
No.
Okay, we'll adjourn